Enough with the clickbait. Enough with the rumors. You want the latest metal news, real news, served raw and unfiltered? Then you need Metalheads podcast. No bull, just the riffs, the releases, and the rage. Tune in live every Friday at 10 p.m. on NPR or dig into the archives and the latest headlines at riffwiremag.com. Get your horns up and welcome to Metalheads with Riffwire Radio.
G'day, we're talking with Richie Cavalera from the band Incite. They're about to release album number 7, Savage New Times, coming out August the 15th. That's only a few days away.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. Nothing like album release week, you know. Things get a little crazy, your nerves start getting nuts, but couldn't be more excited. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, I don't think you got much to be nervous about, mate. It's an absolute killer album, dude. I've been lucky enough to have a listen to the whole thing, and man, right from start to finish, it's absolutely killer.
Yes, that's what I want to hear. That's kind of like how we're feeling, and we felt making it and getting it out. So it's great to hear that feedback kind of resonating with everybody, man. Thank you.
Oh, mate, it's absolutely brilliant. And so, I mean, one of the first questions about it is your songs are all quite short, other than you've got one that's about 5 minutes, but they're all 3 minute sort of songs. Was it that intentional?
Yeah, I think it was more about like just cutting out the bullshit we had kind of had with our previous writer. You know, I think um, we were kind of like hampered in, you know, by somebody that had more power to write, you know, like Oppression and Built to Destroy Records. And, you know, I think you feel the difference of those when you take like Up in Hell, Wake Up Dead, and Savage New Times. You feel a natural progression with that. And I think that's where we're going. You know, Wake Up Dead was that culmination of really transitioning guitar tones, sounds, the vocal performance. And then this record, it's like putting all that together. And, you know, when we were making them, it was just like, we don't need to add pointless stuff just to make it longer. When we were happy with it, we were like, that's the song. You know, that doesn't need anything more. You know, it's so exciting, and already you're like, oh, I want to re-listen again. So it just like it just became what we are and who we are and what felt right to us, you know, rather than a whole bunch of just nonsense in a song that didn't really need to be there anymore.
Yeah, it's got a real punky sort of thrash edge, doesn't it? It's absolutely brilliant. I've been, like I said, I've been thoroughly enjoying listening to it. Could you tell us, you've released 2 singles so far? Could you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, you know, we started off with the song "Just a Rat." I think that kind of, you know, encapsulated this whole record's vibe. You know, that song to me was just like, here's Incite. This is who we are. We were able to take feelings of so many genres. That's why we call ourselves just a heavy metal band, because we're able to take thrash or, you know, punk metal, whatever, and just infuse it and create our own style with it. And Just a Rat brings that. You have the nasty guitar riffs, you have the tone, followed by, you know, Lennon's incredible drumming with this different vocal performance. You know, I think it was more along the lines of wanting to be more spoken like it is, you know, and creating something different and more fresh of like who Incite is and what we're capable of. We're obviously a band that knows to write a heavy raging metal song, but we can do this kind of stuff and create a vibe that's fresh and get your head bobbing and you driving fast in your car, or, you know, feeling some vibe towards some shitty person, you know. And that's what we wanted with this, and that song just totally did it. And you know, I'm following that up with, you know, No Mercy, No Forgiveness, which to us is like one of those songs from this record that just is like, damn, you know, it drops in, it's got the speed, it's got the feel. The lyrics are very cutthroat but positive. You know, it's like you're not gonna stop me from being what I want to be or do what I want to do because you don't like it. I'm gonna do it because I like it, and that's who I am. And, you know, I think those songs really just got the ball moving, got the vibe rolling. You know, for not having an album out in 3 years, people were just like, damn, like this is where we're going with this now. And, you know, it's exciting. Like, we're getting better with each record rather than like chasing some first album that was huge, you know?
Well, that's it. I mean, it must be an interesting evolution, you know, especially over the 7 albums, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I was a teenager when I put out the Slaughter, and now I'm 40 years old, in 10 days putting out Savage New Time. So you understand the difference of mentality, and it's still easy for me to find those gut-wrenching, pissed off lyrics. I think I'm in that generation that keeps getting swallowed into every fucking problem that we're faced. And I think I find it more motivation than being like poor me type shit, and I just use it to fuel more kick-ass metal for everybody to like hopefully have some good therapy sessions too.
Well, that's the beauty of metal, isn't it? It's got it's so cathartic. I mean, I can imagine it being that way for yourself.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think uh, people catch it and they're pulling a lot of different emotions out of each song, whether it be like a specific person or a specific vibe. It's definitely creating your thoughts to race and your mind to definitely explore what's happening further than just being a heavy song or not.
Well, that's it. I mean, a lot of people just sort of think of metalheads as just being, loudmouth, bloody aggressive people. But, the fact is that, most of us are quite well rounded due to the fact that we were able to explore and release those emotions that are somewhat negative.
1,000%. I think heavy metal is the reason why they try to suppress it so much is because it's that powerful and what it does for all of us. It takes their imagery of what we're like compared to who we actually are in person and who you are like talking to you or me or anything like that. It's we're able to release this in a safe way rather than being a rap fan or a pop fan and being a piece of shit to people. We take that out and release it together in a whether it's at a concert, in our car, in our bathroom, wherever it is. This music creates that to know like, hey, someone out there is going through some real shit just like I have, and I know I can get through it. I know I can see the end of this just like they were able to, and rather than creating this false happiness that doesn't exist, and you're not out popping bottles and doing all that bullshit living in these houses that they show in those musics. Ours is real, and again, I think it's why it affects people to be chill and calm and a respectful part of the civilization.
Oh, damn straight. So how much do you guys get involved with the videos and all that? Do you like for the writing or I mean I know one of them was just a lyric video, but the other one do you guys get to sort of create that yourselves or do you have somebody that does it all for you?
It's kind of evolved over the years. I think early on, in the earlier records, we were more hands on because it was like, oh, we want to do everything, but then we started to understand like we're music writers and we're performers of that music. We're not videographers. We're not artists to do fucking covers. We're not those people. That's what their profession is, and that's why they do it. So now we've learned to just kind of take a seat back and let them do what they're supposed to do. Just like people, we don't want people doing that to us while we're writing the song and doing that stuff. So now I think we're growing up. I think that's what you learn. When you're getting older and done music a long time, you trust the pros to do their thing and do their job. And we kind of like we come in on the editing phase, like at the end. After it's all been completed, they let their vision reign, and then we're just kind of like, oh, maybe just some different coloring or more of this guy. That's where we'll kind of speak our piece and our words. But yeah, we want them to do what their boss is at.
Oh no, that's cool. And so you sort of mentioned it there, but the album art cover, who did the art for you?
Yeah, Marcelo Vasco. I mean, legend, man. I mean, he's worked with bands like Slayer and Deicide and Soulfly, and I mean, it's just the list goes on and on and on. And something that's been important to this band is the artwork. I think you look back to like Up in Hell and Oppression, that was Dan Seagrave, who is an absolute legend, and then you have Built to Destroy, done by Andre Buzikov, who also huge artist. And this we wanted someone like that. We put as much into the art as we do in the music and the videos and everything else. So we really just let him again listen to the album, read some lyrics, and present us with his idea. And he came back with this. To me, is one of the most awesome heavy metal albums in the last 10 years. I'd say at least. I think it's it's something that reminds us of going to the record store and not knowing bands and literally just flipping through and be like, that cover's cool, I'm buying that just because of that. And I think that's what we want to instill in this day and age where it's AI, or people don't care so much about their covers like they used to, but it's an integral part of the whole thing to us. Is just important as the music or anything else.
Well, that's right, and you're right there with. I mean, some people think with the digital age that we're starting to lose it, but it's
Yeah.
also been a revival of vinyl, and that. And, I mean, it's magic, eh? And that's that whole experience of looking at the album cover, like you say, and saying, "Man, that's cool. I want to buy that." It's
Yeah.
it's quite a trip, isn't it? It's the whole experience.
It blows my mind that it's 2025 and I'm here promoting a vinyl. Like, I never thought in a million years that's how it would go. I don't even show the CD, so it's quite a trip, man. But I think that's what's coming. I think we've been so overwhelmed with buttons and tech and all this shit that we just want some analog and some simple shit again, and a combustible engine. Like, we just want some chill normal shit that works, and we ain't got to need all the spiffy stuff for it.
Oh, damn straight. That's it. I think it's like the whole anti woke thing. It's like just get back to being real again, and
Yeah,
and vinyl's definitely part of that. I mean, as a child, remembering, going and pulling out the vinyls and putting them on with some big headphones, and just getting into the
yeah.
the whole experience. It's really cool.
The crackle when you put it on, it just, there's nothing like it, and it just, the sound, it sounds like you're listening. Doesn't matter what it is, it sounds like it's from the '70s. It's just that I love that.
Yeah. Well, that's it, and listening to a whole album as well, because I mean that's the beauty of getting into the vinyl is you sit there and it's a bit of a ritual.
Yeah, I think that's why this vinyl should do really well, because it's an album I think that most people want to listen to the whole thing and listen again and again, because you're finding new things, or it's really fresh and fun, and you find yourself almost like smiling after listening to it, like, which has been really weird to me. I've never like finished one of my albums and been like, man, like real happy and just like, oh, I want to play this again and that again. So I think that's what makes the vinyl, like you said, just an awesome appeal in this day and age.
Well, that's it, and you're right. It is surprisingly uplifting, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, man. It's cool. It's cool.
It really is. Um, so how are you guys going to celebrate the album release in a few days?
I think it's going to be a lot of us just kind of at home, maybe probably making some live videos, just kind of talking about it, sharing it with everybody. Um, you know, I we're always on tour during these moments, and we kind of did two tours on both sides of it, rather, and I turned 40 in like 10 days, so I'm going to kind of do an album release birthday type bash, this weekend, and just really just get nice and wasted, and laugh a lot, and blow my neighbors away with the album, as much as I possibly can, as loud as I can, because they seem to hate that metal around my neighborhood, which I got to turn it up louder than for them.
Definitely, definitely. I'll give them a sneak peek. So
Yeah.
writing and recording process, was there much different this time around?
Oh, completely. So, I was mentioning that other guitar player, and what would happen is, he'd kind of just bury himself at home. Months would go by, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, after we've been asking for music, we'd get like 10 songs of all this crap and stuff and things. And it was just like, it just felt so shit. And with this and Wake Up Dead, it was like we transferred all of that into like a real way of doing it without that person. It's like, I sent Lennon, the drummer, and Lane, the guitar player, to Lennon's house in Texas for must have been about 2-3 months worth of time, in between touring and whatnot, to really just hang out and write and fucking smoke some weed and create. And it's exactly what they did. And I think that's what altered everything from the beginning. It was like I got sent the demos, and all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, this is like, there's not a lot I got to do here. It's already there. Now I can just write my lyrics and focus on my fucking part, because I don't have to sit here and worry about what this, jackass is doing on all this stuff. So I think that started the vibe just so much better right off the bat for all the members in the band. And, Lane being allowed to just, he's only been with us for like a year at the time. So for him to like give all this power to go right, and, he was like a kid in a candy store. He was just, man, like ready and had that same influences that we had, but his soloing and his tones and things were like shit we just have like never heard. It was like, dude, like, yes. And that just kept building on all this excitement of this new process. And then using Steve Evans now, 4 records, this time was so different on that end too, because he moved back to New Jersey from California. He had his own place now in New Jersey, and California was like a shared space. So even the recording process was so much just different and not personal. And now it's like we went from sunny, beautiful California to snowy, dark, wintry, ghetto, shithole Trenton, New Jersey, and it was like you there was nothing to do except this record and focus on these songs. So you go from the studio and then to a hotel and then back, and it was just all this record. And that was a great thing to have with the focus that we were able to put on that end. And Steve came up with new ways of the recording process, and it was like we would record each song as a band rather than one guy doing 10 in a row, then the next guy 10. It was like that process seemed like you'd forget things, and it just didn't feel as fresh. And this way it was like we did one song at a time and everybody was like, hell yeah, and then it was like we could move on to the next one and get that same feedback. So I think again that's why you're hearing such a vast acceleration of growth between records from the last to this, is because of all these things that came into play for us.
Yeah, well, that recording process of doing things one at a time and all together definitely comes through in the music, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
people when they do the sort of like sending tracks through the internet and all that sort of stuff, I mean, it comes across great and everything, but it can be quite sterile, can't it?
Oh, definitely. And I think that's what happened to us for Oppression and Built to Destroy. They're great records, but I think the process was just, it was taking away from the organicness of what music's supposed to be about.
Yeah, and it would also help with the bonding with you guys as a band as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, man, it's crazy like how 3 dudes can be brothers and on the same page, but this one guy can literally inflict so much damage and make you almost want to quit doing music. Like I understand some of those stories I hear now about past bands and how that just turns so fast. And it was due to happen to us, and it did. And now we can look back and just be thankful that we made it through, and we made it through even better than we were before.
Well, that's right, album number 7. Absolutely
Yeah, it's really
fantastic,
cool.
mate.
It's really
So
cool.
lyrical inspirations. What was it was there any sort of theme or anything in particular you wanted to write about this time?
Yeah, just fucking people up, man. I think the people that fucked me up and tried to ruin me and cause pain or hate or difficulties know what these songs are and who they're to, and will listen and get to feel my voice finally, because I'm not somebody that goes and just talk shit, or I'm not somebody that goes and I'll confront you about things right away. I'm a person that likes to get you this way. I'll make a song that the whole world can see what a piece of shit you are, and I don't have to really do anything about it. I think this was that. I think Just a Rat, songs like Lies, you know, my favorite one is Chucked Off. I think that's just like literally to just shitheads, especially around us, from even like my parents' organizations of those members and those crew guys, to my own, to girlfriends, to divorces and financial problems, and everything in between. It really just like catapulted with COVID and post COVID. And I went through, I think we all obviously went through a lot of shit, but this was probably the heaviest period of my entire life, and my life's been real heavy with deaths and bands breaking up and all this crazy shit all the time, endlessly. And it just finally became my own personal shit. And I was able to just write it out, man. I think, and put it down and create something that I think a lot of people will resonate with and relate to in their daily lives. And, and I think that's why this record is like hitting so much is, we all have a rat in our life. We all have liars around us. We all have this kind of shit. And, used and abused, also a different kind of vibe for us. It's, about going through abuse as a man and not knowing, which way to turn or how even to fucking realize it. I think that's a moment that it takes like having really good family and friends around you so you can see that kind of shit happening to you, and not letting it happen again. And then I think, like no mercy, no forgiveness is, that's my like thing to like just the metal world. Like I don't care what you think or how I'm doing this or how I've made 7 albums. Like I'm doing it my way, and you're not gonna change that. You're not gonna affect me, and that's cool to feel that. Is like I said, writing an album when you're 19 to 40, you got more chest out at 40. I think than you have at 19. So you're more confident, I think, in what you're saying, how you're saying it, and speaking, out to the world.
Well, I guess in some ways it would be shaking the shackles of your name, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we've never made that a part of who Incite is. Like, you don't go and like see our record cover and be like featuring Richie Cavalera. It's like
Yeah.
I just wanted to be in a band, dude. And I wanted that since I was a baby. And, I think I just dived in, man. And, I've never had a crew. I've never had a tour bus. I've never had like those nice things. We're road dogs and grinders. And I think that's why people give us so much respect, and we continually earn that because of who this band is, how hard we work. We have one of the best reputations among venues and the venue staff and all those people. And, I think that just shows what we're about. We're not some snob nosed assholes that walk in and we're like, fuck you, we're these guys, we don't got to do shit and just fuck shit up. Like that's like, those are the dudes that ruin this for people like me and the good ones that, try hard and fight hard and want to really just continue a legacy on rather than like ride off it.
Exactly, mate. And you definitely earned it, and the album speaks for itself. Um, so do you have a particular microphone that you use or anything like that? What's your weapon of choice?
In the studio, I'm not sure. Steve doesn't tell me. He keeps it pretty secret about what he uses in there. Um, as far as live performance, I use the Shure Beta 58A. That to me has always just felt more comfortable in my hand. Uh, Gives off pretty good sound. It does well if you like to cup or pull far away. Um, the normal 58s, I've never liked. It feels real clunky and just too much for me. And I've tried wireless before, but that shit you have to be like uh, a pretty boy vibe. Like you can't get messy. You can't run around like I like to run around and have that kind of thing. I tried it and like batteries were flying and everybody's yelling because I'm just losing shit and it's just like I like the wire, I like the cord, I like the old school, easy, simple, to the point type stuff.
Excellent. So do you have any like rituals or any sort of place that you like to write? And do you write on the road?
I write all the time. I think the second an album is done, I begin to write the next one in terms of lyrics. Because again, I take things. If I had, bad anxiety that day, I'll write down about what was around that, what was happening, or if I, have a crazy month where I'm struggling to make the bills, or a fight with my girl, or somebody cuts me off in traffic, and I think of a cool line to cuss at them, I'll write those down. And I've already begun that. And, I think if you're an artist, you should always do that kind of stuff just to keep your juices flowing and get that going. But for this album, it was nice. I did actually have like a really peaceful environment to write this in. I think my last like 3 records, it was like I had an ex-wife, that was pretty intense. And it just, you never found that peace to just kind of do your thing and enjoy it. And I'd have to like go in the car and drive around and like just not able to fully engulf to it. And this record, I'd sit in my garage and I'd smoke my weed and I'd have my tequila and I could just create and listen and yell real loud, and nobody really just bothered me, and that I think was really nice, to have that kind of feeling, to like no judgment, no nothing, just like me and these songs and these pens and these papers. And once I do it on the phone, I love to write it because I think that's so old school, and I think writing something down makes it more just like real in the universe. So that to me is a big part. Always an actual pen and paper at the end of the day when it's finally ready to go.
Oh no, that's cool. I mean, even with my interviews, I write down every single interview, go through a process and everything, and it just works sweet. And it helps.
I
It's all
love
that
that.
mental preparation, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we get too lost in our phones and easy with how things can be. Like I tour now, and I like think of these kids. I'm like, man, you would have never made it having to like do map quests to like print out your directions step by step and like count mile markers and all this shit like we used to do, man. Like it's crazy to think about now. It's just GPSs and everything's so easy, and it blows my mind, man.
Oh, it's weird, eh? Like I was talking to somebody the other day, and I mean, like I'm actually in my early 50s, and it wasn't until I was 30 that I got a cell phone. Yet my children, they were pretty much given one at birth. It's
Yeah.
like all this technology that we didn't have, and it's a strange thing, isn't it?
It truly is. I'm on the cusp because I don't like it. Like this that I'm talking to you on is the first laptop I've ever owned, and I just got it a year ago. Almost 40 years old. I'm the same, man. I hate this stuff. I still write sticky notes and all that kind of shit. And then I love growing up in that middle between because I know life without all this shit, and I know life with it. It's kind of the cool part, like you as well.
Yeah, oh, definitely. So what have you been listening to yourself? And is there any new bands out there that are exciting you?
Let's see. In terms of metal, um, yeah, I think there's a lot of really good bands coming up in terms of metal. I was just on tour with a band called Fugitive, who's pretty kick ass, and then you have bands like Body Box from Florida, who's doing really good. I think metal right now is just exploding in terms of like everywhere having a scene. There's a scene in Ohio and Texas and the East Coast with bands like Undead and Enforced and all these kind of cool bands. I worry a little bit that they're kind of all copying or imitating, and that becomes a problem, I think, with any music, and I think, that's what we're trying to do is create a little bit of breathing space for everybody, like there's enough of that. We can have all of it. And, I think we're digging on those kinds of bands right now. And there's a really cool band out of California that I like. They're really small, but they're called Glass Stab. Really dope. Kind of like Dillinger Escape meets like early Deftones, kind of heavier Deftones stuff. And that's been my jam. And being a California guy, I listen to a lot of reggae.
Yep.
That's been always with me. Bands like Revolution and Peter Tosh and Iration and all these bands I really dig. Tribal Seeds, and then you have like I'm very into like industrial stuff like Crosses. It's like one of the projects from Chino from the Deftones, and
Yep.
I dig that. I dig that stuff a lot. It's very just vibing. I think when you're on tour and you're listening to metal 7 hours a day, when I finally hit that reset, I want to have different influences that are going to affect my metal at the end of the day. I think that's something cool about this whole band. Like my drummer, he'll listen to Rihanna and then he'll go put on the Death, and like my bass player, same way, man. He'll Neurosis is his favorite band, but he'll jam, like uh Pink or something while he's driving, just like total two different worlds. And I think that's like why we're not afraid to like put a 12-string guitar on a song like Doubts and the Fears, or, finally like play this piano Dolores song that I think people are fucking tripping on. Like
Nice.
it's just like things that we finally can put our influences fully into Incite. And that's what's like really cool about what we listen to and how it transpires into this.
Excellent. So getting out on the road, you're going to be heading out shortly touring and all that sort of stuff? Any chance of you getting down to Australia and New Zealand?
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. All of a sudden, I got like 15 Australian interviews in a row, and I'm like, this has never happened in all my years. I usually have like one or two, and it's like, we toured there in like I think it was like 2010, and we have not been able to get back. No promoter, no festival, no other bands has taken us or offered us or even given us the chance to come back. So I'm hoping, seeing all this interviews, that something's cooking down there and maybe a possible something next year, because I tell you, I'm pissed that I have not toured there more with all the metalheads that are down there. Every time I've went down there on like my job, like which is selling merch for other bands, I've seen these incredible festivals, incredible shows. I have so many friends down there, and it pisses me off. That's my one big upset about this band and what's going on with that, but right now we've kind of been just doing America tours over and over. We just did the Hatebreed Summer Slaughter tour,
Oh, that
which
would have been
was,
wicked.
oh dude, it was probably the biggest tour we've ever done. For a band like Hatebreed to take us out, like um, total different genre, but we're able to still like tour with bands like them, man, and people still like are just like, damn, like you guys got a vibe going on here, and getting to like test those new songs out was really cool. And now in like 3 weeks we started a tour with 6 Feet Under and Chris
Oh,
Barnes and Exhorter and like all this, dude. It's like
sort of
such a badass tour. And like 6 Feet Under, I think, has only toured here like 2 times in the last like 15 years. So that's going to be crazy, man, and we can't wait for that. And like I said, hopefully after that we're down in your neck of the woods, because if not, I'm firing some people.
well, we'd love to have you down here. Okay, I've got to
Please,
let you
man.
go. So I've got one last question for you before we go, and that is words of advice for young musicians.
Don't give up. No matter how hard it gets, no matter what your other bandmates or whatever the hell anybody says, just don't give up. Keep going. I think metal, especially, it takes at least 10 years before you start really making connection with people, getting the respect from people, and, really, really understanding what you're doing and what you want to be about. So just keep going, man. 20 years, I haven't had one hit, but we're still going and we're trying and we're always just loving what we're doing.